Hello and welcome. Excited to jump in today's topic. We are looking at Canva Magic Studio. So there's some fun things we're going to get into today. And before I get going, just want to say welcome. If I haven't met you, my name is Nathan Wells. I'm director with Digital Labs, and I get to go over all kinds of different training and events. Today's topic, though, is Canva. And Canva has been consistently adding and improving and taking user feedback and educators and listening and really updating their tools. And so I'm excited to dive in. I did a similar webinar to this a year ago, and it's different, right? There's all these differences, and it's not different where you access it, which I really appreciate. It's not like, oh, now I don't know where to go. Canva hasn't done that. What they've done is improve it. So you still use the magic tools in some of the same ways. There are some new ways, but really it's about improvement, which I think is super helpful and I really appreciate. So we're going to dive in and we're going to do a couple of things. So we're going to talk about Magic Write. Excuse me. We're going to talk about Magic Write, how you can draft and brainstorm educational content. We're going to look at layouts and how magic tools within Canva help you come up with layouts and design where you don't have to be the expert. You don't have to know everything about design to make it successful, which is really awesome. And then we'll look at AI image enhancements that are right there built into the tool. All of these from inside of a design. Now, there are some other magic tools that we're not going to get into today. And I speak about those sometimes in conferences or when we do workshops in person. So we're not going to get into all of that, that you could do a full day training on working through all the amazing AI tools built into Canva. But really, we're just going to start with how can I use these practically and jump in pretty quickly and really get the most out of Canva AI, which is they call their magic tools, right? Is what we're going to get into. So we're going to look at Magic Write, we're going to look at Magic Design, and then we're going to look at some of those AI enhancements when it comes to images. And I think I'm going to squeeze in there some elements and stuff too, because that goes right along with it. So where I'm going to start is probably where you start. So I'm on the Canva homepage, except the only difference is right here, I pushed on the top that says templates. And so I chose templates there at the top to get me started. And so that changed my screen a little bit. So if you go to the Canva homepage, and I'm assuming if you're on this webinar, you've probably done that before. Usually we start under home, right over here at the top left. And the only difference is instead of looking at it from the home view, I just clicked on templates. And what I appreciate now that Canva's done is that changes your view and helps you look at templates and only templates. If I were to choose the option right beside it that says your designs, then that would take me to, guess what? My designs. And so I'm not going to be looking at templates. I'm just going to be looking at my designs. And then the very last one we're not going to get into today, but I just want to call it out because it is there, is Canva AI. And Canva AI is a great place to start. It goes along, it's one of the AI tools. It's part of Canva Magic Tools. But what it's doing is it can give you a whole set of activities and create the entire presentation for you. The activities go along with a lesson, an individual activity, a group activity, a writing activity, as well as a matching activity, right? It can create those. And I did a webinar on that a couple months ago, and it still applies if you go to our YouTube channel and look for the different Canva sessions in our monthly series. But so today, though, I want to focus in on what we're doing here. So this is my presentation. Actually, I am going to keep in that mode just because it makes it a little bit easier to view it. So let's go back to that. And what I did is in templates, I typed in water cycle and presentation. I also gave it specifics. It's always good with any AI tool to be as specific as possible and help you do that. And so I asked it to do a water cycle presentation, and then I looked through those different templates, and I chose one. So I opened one that I liked, And I'm just walking you through the quick kind of process I go through whenever I use these tools. And then we'll go back and look at some of the specifics. So in the templates, I said, Canva, I need a water cycle presentation. I didn't give it grade levels. I didn't give it anything other than that. I skimmed through a couple, checked out the highlights, right? And then I chose one and opened it. And so now I'm in design. And in my design, I have over here on the left-hand side, all the things I can do with this design. And I have my slides across the bottom. Now, the other thing I did that I haven't seen people take advantage of as much yet is this fall. I think it was last spring when it first rolled out, but I really started seeing it in everybody's tenant this fall, meaning when you log in, you would also see it, is if you go to the end of your presentation, that very last slide, right after there's a plus sign, but there's also, and my red box is covering it just a little bit, there's a little drop down. When you click that drop down, you get these little boxes that pop up, this grid. And this grid allows you to open a different type of design right here within your presentation slides. And what I love about this is just being able to work in one place, right? How many times do we have to like jump over here and then we jump over here and our lesson plan's here, our student information system's here, our presentation is here, our centers activities are over here, whatever it is. Now we're all in one place, which is amazing. So what I did is I clicked on Doc because I was going to do just that. I wanted to create my centers activities. So I'm going at this. I taught mostly 7th grade American history. I taught a little bit of high school as well. But then I also supported as a tech coach in my school district, elementary, all ages. And so centers activities can take some time to plan. And so I wanted to use that as my example. So in that doc, which you notice now, it kind of just looks like a slide. But when you click on it, it's actually a document set up almost like you would see a Google Doc or a Word doc, right? These are Canva docs, but it's just a part of my presentation. So now it's all together in one place. So here, you'll see at the top, there's 2 places I can get the magic right. It will always be in that top bar, up the top left of that bar, which is amazing. And then also when I right click or there's a little plus sign, when I click that, it will allow me to see Magic Write. And so when I go into Magic Write, right here, it just is right here embedded in it. Reminds me of Copilot and Microsoft Word. And you can just start typing right here what it is that you need the AI support with. And so for this case, I said, I need to create 5 centers activities around student or for students that they can do it individually or they can do it in small groups. So that was the basis of what I wrote. Now, there are some pre-built in prompts. You could use some of those, maybe check some of those out if that's helpful for you. But I kind of knew what I wanted. And so it started doing that. It came up with 5 pretty typical centers activities that you might see. One was a reading station, one was creating a presentation, one was a writing workshop, right? So it had some pretty typical ones. And then if I liked those, I could click insert, or I can use these prompts on the left that I think are super helpful. And it's like more like this. So I wanted to do this. Yes, I like that, but more. Or this is good, but. And if I click that second prompt, it lets me type in both of them. It lets you type in what else you would like the AI to support you in. So very similar if you've used any other AI tools out there. It's not like earth-shattering new, but it's built in. So that's what I really appreciate is it's very accurate. It does a great job and it's built in. I'm not going somewhere else to a new tool. So I inserted that. That was awesome. Now I want to work on my design a little bit. So this slide is super handy, right? Very visual, typical thing we see with water cycles, solid, liquid, and gas with the water vapor. But I have in my mind a design for a slide that has a river flowing on it and a sky that I can type in, right? I don't need to know how to be a design expert to do that. I'm going to ask Canva to do that. And so right up here at the top, it gives me a chance to, when I click on templates, it gives me another text box, just like the Magic Write, They said, now we're in design. And I typed in, I want a river photo at the bottom. I want the background to have a sky, right? And I asked it to do that. And so you can see it's generating that, and it takes a second. And then it created two for me, and I'll zoom into those in a moment. This is one of them it did. And then there's another one that's more of a photorealistic picture there. And you notice these are just dropped in amongst my slides. Now, I do want to call out, if you were to do that, if you're clicked on a slide, it will replace that slide. So to avoid that, if you want to keep the slides that are there, that is, hover between your slides and click the plus symbol, so that way it doesn't replace your slide. So let's jump in and do that. So what I'm talking about here, and I'm going to go to my water cycle one, this is the actual presentation I was working with. Here you can see I had some great slides, but I wanted to kind of find one. So this is what Canva Design created for me. This is through an AI prompt. It's a fantastic photograph, kind of has what I had in mind there. And then here's that second one you saw. And this is all through the templates up here. And you can see there's my prompt I typed, right? Create a slide with the background, river, yada, yada. And I can use that, or I can see some of the others that are templates. So I can click on any of these and use just a single slide, or I can use the ones that are just built in, which are great. The other thing, though, is maybe you have something really specific in mind. So I'm going to delete this photo. I'm just using the delete key on my keyboard. And I actually have that river idea in mind. So I'm just going to ask for a river photo. And you'll see it brings up some, but generate image is an option. So here I can also generate an image. So I'm like, oh, I've looked in here. And here's the thing. I don't want to take forever, right? We're all limited on time. So we don't want to take forever to figure this out or to find the exact photo that you have pictured in your mind. So sometimes it's easier just to say, hey, just generate that for me. And you could give it more directions, right? Again, the more specifics we give an AI tool, the better the output, always. I said river photo, so it did a pretty darn good job for the limited information I gave it. So I could enter this right here on my screen. I'm actually going to hover or swivel that just a little bit. I'm going to make it come across. Just bear with me. And then I'm going to go, and because this is a photo, I can go to edit, and I have the Magic Studio here. I also have one of the two most used tools, according to Canva, which are the Magic or the background remover, part of the Magic tools, and the Magic Eraser. So I'm going to click background remover, and let's see what it pulls out. Yeah, so it just pulled out the very top. It didn't really pull out anything else. So I'm going to use the Magic Eraser. There you see right here, you got two options. I'm going to click Magic Eraser. And I'm actually going to get rid of the hills and everything above here. And I have this nice big brush that I can do that with, which is great, because I just really want that river going into the distance. Awesome. Click Erase. Perfect. And then I'm going to click the little X and go back, and you'll notice now it's just my river. Now, I'm not going to claim to be a design expert, so that may not be perfect, but I think it has a nice look and feel to it. And actually, I might split this into two. That's a trick I've done multiple times. I'll duplicate it. You see how I duplicated that? And crop them to get a better feel for what I'm looking for, which can be helpful. Oops, I did not mean to rotate that. Actually, that might be the better feel than duplicating it. Oops. I'm getting all crazy here. So I'm not going to waste our time. So that might actually be, yeah, see, I still want that to be different. And that's the thing is I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. So I play with it a little bit. If I don't get exactly what I want, I'm not going to waste time and keep coming and going with it back and forth. But that's pretty slick for what I was envisioning. And I wasn't real careful with my eraser here, so it cut off a little bit. But you know, I could play with that if I really wanted to. The point is because I have this photo and I have these magic tools over here, I can do a lot. There's a lot of cool things I can do. image, grab text, grab image, background generator is pretty slick as well. And then Magic Edit and Magic Expand. So Magic Expand is one I'd like to do. So I've already rotated, because I've rotated this image, it doesn't want to do the expand. So I can actually just go back, plop, and then do Magic Expand. Let's do full page. And I've played with this image a lot, so it may be getting kind of grumpy with me about what I can and can't do. So I'd have to come back and play with that. The way I've done Magic Expand in the past is I've dropped in an image and asked it to expand the background. So maybe it's got like a lady holding flowers, and we can see some of a flower garden, but we can't see beyond that. And so I can say Magic Expand, and it'll like create the flower garden. So just like it goes on, which is really cool. So depending on what is helpful for your students and what you might need, that could be something you can do to help as well, which could be nice. So there, it's played with my crop a little bit, which is nice, using that Magic Expand. And then I can also, you can see those other images I brought in. Here's also the ones. This actually may have been perfect for what I really needed. And you notice, I'm going to duplicate this slide to play with a little bit. That this photo moves around. And if I wanted to keep it still, I can just right click and say replace background. And so now it just immediately expands it across the whole slide, and it just sits nicely in the background. So everything is just automatically going to be on top of it. That's another little tip that can be really helpful. It has nothing to do with magic tools, but can be really helpful in Canva, which is kind of cool. So I have these, and then I can move this around. The other thing that can be helpful is I can ask it to help me generate a whole series of things across the top. So at any time here, I can click on any of these text boxes and ungroup them. So I want this little text here. Let's pull it down so I can see a little bit better. I'm actually going to click Ask Canva. So this is a new-ish feature where it's not just Magic Write. So Magic Write is going to write the text for us. Ask Canva can help us do a little bit more editing of text. It can turn our text into an image. It can suggest things for us, which I really appreciate. So in this case, I'm going to click Rewrite Text for students learning about water systems. Oops. And then click the little go, submit comment, and you see it working over here on the right-hand side. So it kind of keeps it all together, but it's not interrupting the actual work you're doing. And I'm not going out to Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, wherever you go. So it gives me 3 versions that I can look at, and I can decide which one makes the most sense. And then I can click the plus and add it right onto the page, which is great. And then I can also go in and, of course, redo all of this. In this case, I would change the color and probably put a background behind it, which would make it stand out a little bit more. I like doing that with shapes. I add a shape right behind it. And you can even get into transparency a little bit, so you still see the river, but it helps the text to stand out a little bit, which is nice. So there's some fun things you can do like that to help things stand out, to save you time, your cognitive load of just writing the text and getting things taken care of that you need to prepare for your next class, for your next unit, whatever you're doing, which is really helpful. So we also have, if we go back to our, what we were doing is those, well, I've talked a little bit about the visual enhancements. So I'm gonna go a little bit farther with that. So if I grab one of these dinosaurs and click edit, I have all of these Magic Studio, but I also have, go back, the click. So I can click on an area. So let's say I want the spikes. There we go. And I'm going to say magic erase. And really, it just just takes them right off. So there's some interesting things we can do with that can be helpful. And again, how is it instructional? There we go. Helpful for your class and what you're trying to do and what's most meaningful from what you need. And the thing that's important about this is, does it help the students focus more or be engaged more with the content that you're working on? In this case, that was just a silly thing. But if I had something that was a distraction, that was going to pull my students' attention away from the content we were actually working on, that might be something I want to use that erase for. Sometimes I did a session a couple weeks ago on visual design elements. And what we know just from the science of how our brains work is that when something is bigger, kind of an inverted color or a brighter color than anything else on the page, that's where our eyes go to first. And so sometimes that can be really helpful because, like this picture, my eyes don't go to the words first. My eyes go to the sunset first. And so because I know that, I'm just going to right click and say replace background. Because I know that, I'm going to move my text and maybe add like that layer I was talking about a minute ago to put behind it so that that text stands out and that students are focused on the text in the class. Let's do a darker color. Instead of just worrying about what is going on with, let's move that back, there we go. What's just going on with the sunset? I want them to focus on, yes, I want their eyes drawn there, but what's the purpose? And so using some of those built-in tools and our understanding of learning, we can help draw our students in and engage their minds in what's going on for our content. So in this case, this is just kind of a cutesy slide, but really my focus is water cycle. And so maybe this is a question I want to ask my students. So I could have, let's actually expand that. And let's bring in another text box. And let's use Magic Write. So I'm going to use Magic Write to create a new text box and question for middle age, let's give it an age, 12-year-old students about how the river works in the water cycle. Oops. I always hit enter out of habit. You have to click the little purple button. So here it's going to, let's see how this question is. How the rivers play a role in the water cycle and why are they important for the movement of water land to the ocean. So the second half of that question isn't as important, but can you explain how rivers play a role in the water cycle? Let's just stick with that, right? So I'm going to just go out. There we go. And you notice it gave me the whole prompt, which I don't need. Nice. Okay. And then the other thing that's important to remember is how students are going to read this from where they're sitting. And so if I look at this right now, one of the things that immediately is kind of called out in my mind is the way that the bright color to the dark color of the land makes the word explain kind of hard to see, especially if I have students farther in the back or visually impaired in any way. That's a little bit harder to see. So we can add another box there or move that text around to make sure that it's easy for all students to see. So maybe this is the way we want to do that instead. So again, we're muting that sunset just a tiny bit and still bringing students' eyes to the center of the screen, but making that text easier to read. So I might play with this a little bit more if I was really going to use this, but hopefully that gives you an idea of kind of a way that you can use the Magic Write. I use the Magic Elements. I went into Elements and did a search, right, for the river photo. I used templates and did a prompt to help it create a slide version for me. And all of this started with going back to the main screen, the home screen, and finding a template that I wanted to use. So quickly in our couple of minutes here, under Canva AI, I could also ask for a water cycle presentation. And it will also create that through the Magic School, the Magic AI tools in Canva, which is pretty slick. So you can see here, it asks me some questions to help it make sure that it's doing it correctly, which is pretty awesome. So I want it educational. How many pages do you want it, right? And then I can give it some specific things that make the most sense, and then I can click submit. So it's asking about style, audience, and length, and give you a few choices. Now remember, I also could have created that in my prompt, or I could have added that to my prompt. And you can see it's adding, here's the pages it's going to create. And it even has text on each of those slides. If you've seen Gemini or PowerPoint, Copilot in PowerPoint or Gemini in Google presentations with those extra paid licenses, that's what it does. But education accounts in Canva are free. So if you have Canva education, you have this. It's not an extra fee. So I think that's pretty phenomenal. So I'm going to click create design because I could have reviewed those slides, done some edits, added some more, but just for our purpose, I'm going to click create design. And then it's going to go ahead and create that design for us. So think about your context. What is your role, or maybe colleagues you work with? And I just want to call out students. So everything we've looked at so far is available to students, except by default, Magic Write is not on for students. If your administration, whoever's in charge of your Canva instance, maybe it's IT, they would have to purposely turn on Canva Write for students for that to be available, but the rest of this is available. So students can edit images and edit presentations and ask it to create certain types of elements within a presentation, right? I was creating the picture of the river. So all of that's available. So it gave me some choices here, and I can look through these and see what makes the most sense. I'm just going to click this last one. Look at these slides it created for me. Really cool that it pulled all this together for me and made these. And then I can go through and I'm like, maybe not that one. I can go back to the other one and I can see this one. So it gives me these previews and I can say, all right, let's use Canva Editor on that. I can get right in and get started. Not very long to just jump in, have something created and get going. And again, back in that last window, I could have said, these are great, but I really need it to not be a cartoon, or you can use words like make it photorealistic or make it real looking pictures or something like that. So give it the most instructions possible to get the best outcome. Now, I also want to share with you a resource. So this is a resource that is freely available to you, and it's some of the materials I put together about what I did today and how some of this was created and some ideas per grade level. So I'm just going to click on that myself. So here in this, zoom in a little bit, you can see that I say, here's how Magic Write can work, design, image tools. And then here's some practical use cases that you could use for this. Creating centers is one of the activities I did today. Weekly newsletter layouts, one-page study guide templates, syllabus, if you're, depending on what you teach. And then some other ways that you can use them in prompt templates, there we go, that you can grab. So draft a 5-minute warm-up for grade blank, include 3 questions, right? So you can use some of these draft ideas to help you get going, and then just some things to look out for as you're using it. Because one of the things we want to be aware of is AI is not going to replace your knowledge, and it's not perfect every time. So these are just some call outs to help us do that. Now, I want to call out Canva Magic Write helps me create this. So I went into Magic Write, told it what types of things I wanted, and a handout for you all, and it helps me write this. It created those little checkbox symbols. I didn't create those. And it looks great, and I added some things and changed some things, but really, it did a phenomenal job helping with that. And then I went in and formatted as well with the fonts and everything I wanted. And then there's some nice helpful links at the bottom that, especially the Magic Write, if you need to remember what does what and how you use them, that's a great link to see those. But as always, we're coming to the end of our time, and I'd love to stay connected with you. So if you have not already found out from our Canva newsletter, I'm getting ahead of myself, Digital Labs newsletter, that's how we list, or that's where we list all of our Canva webinars, as well as on our website, which is just Phygital, P-H-Y-G, I-T-A-L-L-A-B-S, phygitallabs.com/events. You can go there. You can subscribe to our newsletter, and love to connect with you on social as well. I'm at EdTechWells, and then you can find me on LinkedIn. But thanks for hanging out with me for a little while. I hope this was some useful content and helped you get going and using Canva more in your class. Thanks, everybody. Take care.